And now, with a look at people and places in the news, here's Weekend Update correspondent Opera Man.
You may be wondering why we're looking at Opera Man. Well, it's because Opera Man can help explain something. Not here where he's singing opera. Well, actually kinda here where he's singing opera because the deep bellowing vocal bravado does actually relate. But really because of what else he can illustrate for us. As we've talked about, when music so drastically changed in the 90s with grunge bands hitting the scene and making all the shrieking hair bands look and sound ridiculous, a lot of things changed. Skin-tight spandex? Nah, baggy ripped jeans. Sprayed up hair? Nah, naturally dirty, stringy, unwashed hair. Shrieking the greatest, highest, most wanton, shrill screams of debauchery? Oh hell no. And yeah, we know all this. But what we're going to talk about today is part of what came along in that high shriek's place. It's an affectation of singing that led to a vocal style or classification that cast a much wider net than grunge and affected mainstream music and alternative bands well down the line. What I'm talking about is Mohaim. Also known as Mohaim, Yarling, or simply Yowling, but I really think Mohaim captures it best. Now, you're probably wondering, what the hell is Mohaim? And that's why Opera Man is here. Because Mohaim is essentially an onomatopoeia for that style of singing where it sounds like the singer has a mouthful of marbles and their teeth are gritted around them and their eyes are rolled back into their head and they're emotionally moaning and kind of howling out their miseries in a baritone bellow without fully opening their lips. And, well, that's just easier to hear than further describe, so take it away, Opera Man.
Billboard numero uno. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Somebody get to that cover of Time magazine. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Somebody get to go to that Nirvana kiss my ass. Oh yeah.
That, my friends, is Mohaim singing, and Opera Man is in fact parodying the father of Mohaim himself, Eddie Vedder. And so today, as we take a look at the very oral history of Mohaim, I think there's no better place to start than where it all began, with Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam kicks off what I like to call the Salad Days era of Mohaim, and their single here, Even Flow, off of 1991's 10 album, really puts the Mohaim on full display. Though in truth we could look at any of the big singles off of 10, like Alive or Jeremy, but this was the one Opera Man sought fit to parody, and this was indeed the one that really caught like wildfire through the school hallways and cafeterias and parking lots. This was the one kids would idiosyncratically sing, doing their own Vedder impressions, much like everyone's terrible Beavis and Butthead impressions we all got subjected to not much later. Now, what created Vedder's Mohaim yowl? Well, certainly part of it is just Vedder the man, father of Mohaim. That's his voice, dude. But the way he uses it is really bridging two things. First, the lyrics of 10, and the lyrics in general of these bands of this new gritty Northwest flannel-clad scene were channeling lots of dark and serious and personal subject matters. There's a lowness, a richness, even a gentleness needed. Even Flow is about a real homeless veteran struggling on the streets. Jeremy is about a real kid who killed himself in class. Alive's about Ed learning his dad wasn't his dad and his real dad was dead. But I said two things. And the second thing is needing to project this emotional mixture over a ripping guitar band that's turned all the way up through huge amps like their classic influences. Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Neil Young and Crazy Horse, etc. And yes, those singers all had their ways and means of handling those dichotomies, but Eddie cracked new ground in his fusion. Especially with the way he stylistically bent and slurred words and kind of obfuscated the thematic heaviness of a lot of what he was singing about. Thus, a whole new style was born. Now, I think there's varying doses of Mohaim in all of the singers of the big four of grunge, aside from Vedder being Cobain, Staley, and Cornell, but I'm less concerned at looking at them individually since they all came out of that Seattle melting pot together, and Vedder gives us our most striking example. But I do think we can talk next about Scott Weiland on Stone Temple Pilots' 1992 single Plush, off their debut album Core. STP were not from Seattle, came just a little after the wave hit, and Scott took a lot of heat for sounding a lot like Vedder at the time. Just listen. Now, what was going on with STP, and why I think they wrote out the naysayers and established themselves in their own right, is they were a very talented young band with their finger on the pulse and just a little too good at constructing a facsimile without the broader detailing lens developed yet to differentiate themselves. And even in this first mode, hitting a little too close to the target, they still wrote great songs. Plush, Sex Type Thing, Wicked Garden, Creep, Dead and Bloated. Core is stacked full of bangers. Nowadays, looking back at it, I feel like everyone's way more forgiving because the songs are so there. And even at the time, while it might have been a little obtuse to go so Mohaim, it also may have helped them break into a scene that was hungry for more of what everyone was quickly calling the Seattle sound. The biggest thing I can say to STP's credit here, and Scott Weiland's credit as a singer, is they did not stay here. They pushed away a bit more into eclectic fuzzy alternative with their follow-up Purple, and by the time their third album Tiny Music dropped, they were incorporating trashy, garagey glam rock, and Scott was working into his upper registers, adding feathery wisps and hip affectations to his vocals more akin to Mark Bolan or Jonathan Richmond. But in '92, fresh out of the gates, they helped cement the birth of Mohaim.
Did I mean to treat you bad? Yeah, but I did it anyway.
Now, I want to look at one more band in what I call the salad days of Mohaim, and this puts us just 1 year later to 1993, with Candlebox and their single Far Behind off their self-titled debut album. Candlebox was from Seattle, formed in 1990, and were definitely riding that Seattle wave and poised for their moment in the wave. They looked regulation with their long, greasy hair and baggy rags, and yet also authentic. They did not seem like they were posers. But also, and this is why in particular we're stopping to look at them, I think they offer us the first glimmer of what lies over the horizon. Still in the grunge scene, but singer Kevin Martin is taking that Mohaim bellow and dip and dive and putting some real sugar in it.
And someday we can take our time to brush the leaves aside so you can reach us.
Sugar that none of the big four singers did with quite such a cleanliness. And the band did the same with the song itself. Far Behind is a very pretty song. Even when it roars into its big yowling chorus and the distorted guitars kick in. The vocals very much mumble and stumble along, not unlike Even Flow, and you similarly can't pick out exactly what's being said, but the effect is very different. Rather than be inclined to parody it, you kind of just want to tap your steering wheel and mumble sing along. Maybe even let your mind drift as it fades to the background and you start to think of other stuff, like where you're going to meet your friends or what assignments you might have to. And hey, isn't there a history test this week? Also, I know we're talking Mohaim here, but guitarist Peter Klett even gives us an almost Slash-like epic guitar solo. Now, Far Behind rocks. I want to be clear, I'm not knocking it, but it does signify a slight change in the formula. And I do think it's fair to say that it kind of marks the end of the salad days of Mohaim, because by this point, everyone was drinking from the Cascade, and things really start to change after this.
With a little love and some tenderness,
We'll walk upon the water. We'll rise above the mist.
Now, the next stop on this train officially brings us to the next era, which I'm still going to affectionately call the halcyon days of Mohaim. And actually, the first band we're going to look at is not grunge at all, but is very Mohaim. And that's Hootie and the Blowfish with their 1994 mega single, Hold My Hand. And first off, I had no idea David freaking Crosby sings harmony on this. Did you know this? Anyway, singer Darius Rucker brings the Mohaim to a whole new level. And it's important for a lot of reasons. Like, Hootie is about the most antithetical thing to Seattle grunge. They were immediately cited as being about the lamest band, that I suspect a lot of people secretly liked, but that's another story.
We'll take a walk together, walk the road a while, 'cause I got a hand for you.
They were safe. They were radio friendly, and I don't think Darius was overtly channeling Vedder. I think Darius just has a quavery baritone himself, but I do think he was exposed to the cultural cascade himself for one, and that because of those salad days of Mohaim, and particularly that arc toward the sugariness it followed, they, meaning the Mohaimi grungers, set the stage and prepared the world for exactly this.
I wanna love you the best that I can.
What happens effectively with Hootie and the Blowfish is Mohaim officially becomes mainstream. Now it's not you tapping your steering wheel, your mom is tapping the minivan steering wheel, mindlessly humming along and going, oh crap, I forgot to set the VCR to record Oprah. Now, going back to what I said about people secretly liking Hootie, I would probably fall into that category back in the day, but I outwardly kind of love him now. The album Cracked Rear View was so massive it actually went double diamond, which means 20 million copies sold. And there are only like 14 double diamond albums ever, and several of those only qualify because they're double albums that sold 10 million. So its power was massive. And I would actually kind of make the argument that maybe it's the definitive album of the 90s when you consider not just the hip pop culture mainstream, but all the humans bumbling about the shopping malls, grocery stores, offices, and zipping up and down the highways just trying to exist and looking for a hand to hold. In 1994, Hootie brings Mohaim to everyone.
It's 12 o'clock and it's a wonderful day. I know you hate me, but I'll ask anyway.
But don't worry, we're not done having fun yet. You can take off the khaki pants for this next one. Leaping just another little bitty frog hop forward to 1995 is Silverchair and their grungy breakout single Tomorrow off their debut album Frog Stomp. Silverchair is worth discussing because they really show not how Mohaim had infiltrated the mainstream, but how quickly Mohaim had gone worldwide to be blaring out of TV sets and radios to influence the adolescent even in their homeland of Australia. The thing about Silverchair that made them work was, in 1995, they were all like 15 years old, had won some Australian radio contest and gotten to make a record, and the record was good. Like, not even just for 15-year-olds, but genuinely pretty good. And even though everyone was maybe pretty well oversaturated with grungy, Mohaimi stuff in the alternative world by this point, Silverchair brought a breath of fresh air with their youth, their nation of origin, and their ability to amalgamate. It's not just the Mohaimi bellow of Daniel Johns on the chorus reminiscent of Pearl Jam's Jeremy. Or the plodding, semi-clean dirge of the verse guitars reminiscent of Nirvana's Heart-Shaped Box. Or the hot, but not too hot licks guitar solo reminiscent of Alice in Chains' Jerry Cantrell. But the way it all came together was the first example of the next generation taking those influences to create their first sound and introduce themselves to the world. When STP hit the scene, they did it as contemporary artists, taking immediate cues from the world around them and using them to build a sound. But Silverchair were young enough, they were showing the world a reflection of grunge's influence through the eyes of the young, and evidence that even as far across the world as Australia, where kangaroos bounce around and seasons are totally opposite, and the moon even looks upside down in the sky, kids just picking up guitars were singing with that Mohaim bellow now.
Been good enough. I'm a little bit rusty and I think my head is caving in.
I'm issuing a red alert. We are now leaving the Halcyon Days era of Mohaim, and we are entering what I call the Imperial era of Mohaim. Hope you liked that last little sweet look that Silverchair gave us, because now the seeds of commerce that were planted with Hootie are really going to start to grow wild and out of control. But it actually doesn't get too bad yet. The first taste of Imperial Mohaim comes in 1997 with Matchbox 20, when their single Push starts to make waves off their 1996 album, Yourself or Someone Like You. I joked about your mom liking Hootie, but singer Rob Thomas and his new emotive and sensitive Mohaim caterwaul has all the little sisters tearing his picture out of magazines and sticking them up on their lockers and bedroom walls. But make no mistake, this is Mohaim, and Matchbox 20 are the first true Mohaim heartthrobs. While I was saying Hootie just kind of lucked out by having the stage set to accept their seemingly innocuous sound, I think Matchbox 20 was a little more cerebral. They were actually aware of everything. The safe, saccharine teddy bear Mohaim of Hootie, the teeth-bearing and dark guitar-driven Mohaim of Pearl Jam, the poppy reshapen alternative rock Mohaim of Candlebox even. You know, they took the whole scope and kind of scooped it together. They were a bit dark and sentimental, but they weren't going to sing about a kid who shot himself or about holding your hand either. Rob doesn't know if he's ever been good enough, and he doesn't know if he's ever been really loved. This is heartaching, broken down, soul-bearing Mohaim.
I've been cheated, I've been wrong. You don't know me.
It's dark, but it's not too dark. It's sweet, but it's not too sweet. There's electric guitars, and they rock, but they don't bite too hard. There is barely a guitar solo, and I have never heard anyone mention the name of a Matchbox 20 guitar player. But Rob's ability to take all the hallmarks of Mohaim singing and make them as mainstream as a runway model makes a motorcycle jacket seem is both impressive and important. Because to me, even though Matchbox 20 marks the beginning of Imperial Mohaim, they're actually the last Mohaim band I actually like.
Just wait a minute, well, I kind of fell apart. Things get so crazy. Well, I just heard the news today. It seems my life is gonna change.
And sorry kids, this is where it breaks bad. As Imperial Mohaim continues to rise to power, a great force is unleashed upon the world by the name of Creed, with their debut album, My Own Prison. They begin to make waves in 1999 with their single Higher, but when the third single with Arms Wide Open hit #1 in the year 2000, it was all over.
Welcome to this place, I'll show you everything with arms wide open.
I joked that you liked Candlebox and your mom liked Hootie and your little sister liked Matchbox 20, but the only way I can really put this is like, the people you just want to punch in the face liked Creed. I think they're really the first example that took everything there was to take from Mohaim backwards. I mentioned Candlebox looked the part but felt authentic. Well, Creed just seemed totally synthetic. And Scott Stapp's emotive face scrunching and fist clenching just seems so put on. And he has no problem striking that Jesus Christ pose that Chris Cornell sang concerningly about. Some might argue Matchbox 20 was the first truly evil corporate manufacturer of Mohaim, but there was still stuff to love there for me. Scott Stapp seemed to somehow truly just cherry-pick the most disingenuous attributes of Mohaim and commodify it. God, they even had strings.
With arms wide open, loud
And strings can be cool, don't get me wrong. Alice in Chains used them ingeniously on I Stay Away. But here it just adds to the bloat and bravado. But the thing with Creed and Scott Stapp is, when you take all the artifice of Mohaim and perfect it, you kind of create Super Mohaim. The first Mohaim band I admittedly do not like are kind of the holders of the ring. Eddie Vedder may be the father, but Scott Stapp is undeniably the son of Mohaim, and he has no problem striking the pose to prove it.
Never made it as a wise man. I couldn't cut it as a poor man stealing. Tired of living like a blind man. I'm sick aside without a sense of feeling.
And if you thought there wasn't anywhere lower to go, I'm sorry to tell you, but further into this abyss we must descend. In 2001, Nickelback finally broke through the door they'd been banging on for 3 albums with their single How You Remind Me off their 3rd album, Silver Side Up. I probably don't need to explain how Nickelback is one of the most hated bands on the planet. And this is often where I'll chime in and say I don't actually hate the thing that everyone hates, but I really have nothing to say in defense of Nickelback. And they're even Canadian, and I usually love Canadian rock bands. I Mother Earth, The Tea Party, BTO, Rush, Anvil, but Nickelback I do not abide. I guess I'll at least say I don't despise them, they just kind of sound like nothing to me. A term I like to use for bands like this is nothing music. If Creed was what the people you want to punch in the face are listening to, Nickelback is just straight up what the extras are listening to. You know, the people you don't even think about. The NPCs, the randos. Who cares what they listen to? Let them have it. But regarding sound, it's like they took the facsimile that the Creed copy machine spat out, and they made a copy of that. And it all started to just mush out. Singer Chad Kroeger doesn't even overtly sing with a Mohaim yowl. He added a gruffness and mixed in some Hetfield light, and it may be more fair to give this classification a name like Brohaim or something. But all the conduits of Mohaim have led to here, and this is kind of the end of the pipeline. From the beautiful and potent formulas and elixirs of Pearl Jam to the muck and sludge oozing out of the pipe now, I feel like I should say something nice because Chad can write a hit, and they've even tried different stuff. And they're a universally maligned band, and I do love sticking up for the beaten down. But I think the only nice thing I can say is, I believe this is what actually caused Imperial Mohaim to fall. There were no nutrients left, and the grazing masses had no choice but to move on. Now, in this century, we're in what I pretty much call the post-apocalyptic era of Mohaim. For the most part, you will only hear an echo or a familiar whisper here and there. The last band I can remember really feeling like hit me with some good Mohaim vibes was Kings of Leon.
You know that I could use somebody, someone like you.
With their super Mohaim-y Use Somebody, which was off their 2008 album Only by Night. But I really remember this hitting in like 2010. In like every hip clothing store or coffee shop, and then just everywhere. This one was inescapable for a while. And it was kind of funny because it was fusing Mohaim vocals with more modern indie rock and stomp clap hey and bands that used the millennial whoop flavors. And rather than call this some new breed of Mohaim, I would more jokingly refer to them as something like Emohaim in the post-apocalyptic era of Mohaim. And I'm just being playful here, as I am in this whole video, but I maintain there is some legitimacy to the silly weaving we've done here today. I'm sure I'm not as hip with all the latest offerings of this expansive modern world, so if there are any modern Mohaim bands you want to shout out now that you're hip to the world of Mohaim, shout them out in the comments. I also couldn't talk about every Mohaim band I wanted to mention. 7 Mary 3's Cumbersome was another solid entry in the radio staples of the Halcyon era. And Stain's It's Been a While is another funny aberration of the end of the Imperial days. I can barely say the title of that one without slipping into the Mohaim voice myself.
It's been a So lady, I'm thinking with you is where I want to be.
And if you think I'm making this up, Mohaim was even parodied on Mad TV. And speaking of, there's another Imperial era band we didn't mention here, The Calling. And they even eventually bring out Ray Charles. Holy crap, is Ray Charles the godfather of Mohaim? And even when they made this Mad TV parody, they didn't know what to call it. Well, I'll tell you, it's Mohaim. And now when you're out there in the big bad world, all you need do is bend your ear and listen for its calling.